The Last of Us Part 2. Now, that was the first game that was shown by Mark Cerny, a curious choice. Um, and obviously, even more curious is the fact that the internal resolution for the PSSR mode was the same as the performance mode on the base PlayStation 5. You've seen it now.
I have.
I want to know everything.
Yeah, so with The Last of Us Part 2, they have an interesting approach to the modes that I think I did not really expect, which is they're doing a new PS5 Pro mode, which is targeting 60 FPS, and that's the mode that we've seen featured in the footage. But then they're also including the old graphics mode, or rather the old performance mode and the old fidelity mode, both running with their PS5 settings. They were able to confirm to me, although it was no particular mystery, that it's 1440p to 4K using PSSR. Obviously, we had kind of pegged that in our own research there. Subjectively speaking, it did look like a native 4K render. We actually do have a bit of matched footage to look at here, and it's definitely resolving a ton of detail, like we saw with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. PSSR, when you look at like TAA and the way that it tends to blur a native 4K output, like TA can look really good at 4K, but it often isn't the sharpest necessarily at 4K. And here it looked really, really sharp, really, really detailed. And I think you do see that in this comparison footage. It's actually substantially more detailed than that 4K fidelity mode was before. But image stability is not quite as good. It's more similar to the old performance mode, I would say. PSSR, in my experience, it does vary a bit on a per title basis. I'd say something like Ratchet and Clank looks very nice and very natural. And here there's a little bit more breakup in the image. Stability is a little bit worse. I could imagine that some of that might come down to like some remnants of their old TA implementation, depending on how they're slotting it in. It could come down to sharpening, like we saw with Ratchet. Again, if that is the case, I don't think it's needed at all here because it's resolving so much detail, and you really do want to emphasize that visual stability, I think. There are some other issues, like the depth of field is not rendering quite correctly. That's a very common element of upsamplers that's not working well in some titles. The shadows are also slightly different in the matched footage that we do have. I didn't notice it during gameplay, but in this footage, I suspect that's not intended. Maybe it's an alignment thing. It doesn't look quite right to me, but just minor issues. I'm sure those will be sorted out in terms of that shadow detail for sure. But overall, it was kind of one of those titles that shows you like the very peaks of PSSR and then also some of the potential pitfalls at the moment, where image stability, especially when you're just like weirdly moving forward through a scene and you've got that detail in your eye, maybe detail a little bit further away from the camera, and you're looking at it and it's breaking up a bit as you move forward, and that's kind of the issue with PSSR at the moment. But I think at a typical viewing distance, this stuff wouldn't be as apparent as it is when we're doing 400% zooms or looking right up next to a 4K panel, right? So it's important to emphasize also, like, this is a very 4K-like image. Like, it resolves like a 4K-like image. It just resolves like a 4K-like image with, like, TA that's not 100% doing the right thing all the time in this case.